A big thanks to the developers for the review copy. I'm so happy to see games like Divinity coming to the Nintendo Switch. I feel like there have been a few key moments in its history so far, like the release of Doom that shocked us all by actually running, then came Warframe, and most recently the Witcher 3 announcement, essentially breaking what we thought was possible on the hardware. This new paradigm shift paves the way for an anything's possible attitude for developers on the Switch. Divinity is a monumental game, huge with vast scope for role-playing and an online multiplayer component as well as competitive and co-op arena modes. Is it still worth that premium price despite not having a physical release? Let's find out. Don't let the initially slightly cliche opener of Divinity 2 fool you. This is very much a role-playing game, where through your actions, you'll craft a tale totally separate to the one already so expertly woven through it. You begin your adventure aboard a ship bound for a prison island, comically named Fort Joy. All you are initially told is that the collar that now adorns you will somehow mute the power that flows through your veins and hinder your ability to tap into the void. This is the absolute tip of the iceberg in terms of the story provided, and you're never hindered by the game's design. NPC characters can be killed, rivals taken out, and the multitude of side quests approached in numerous different ways. Before you begin the game, you'll be given a choice of some pre-created characters, each with a unique backstory and lore.
Once I was a crusader for the Divine Order. I pledge my life.
And each offering you some avenue within the game to explore them further. The way you design the character is also geared towards allowing that role-playing experience, with certain traits massively affecting the way you're treated by others and opening a range of possible dialogue options. I, for some reason, created a dual-wielding warrior mage who was a thief of royal blood with the worst Cockney accent you ever did hear.
Ready! Meet your maker!
Walker is his name, and getting robbed after losing games of cards seems to be his game. Ay caramba. There is an arena mode that you can play with hot seat multiplayer with up to 4 players locally or online, but I all but skipped this fearing that my 6-year-old wouldn't quite understand why I was trying to end her characters. The single player campaign allows you to choose one of several difficulty modes depending on both your skills and the playstyle you prefer. I like that they name these this way, rather than simply making you feel bad for choosing the easier, story-centric mode. I didn't know, I'm just saying I chose classic mode, so if you did choose that then good on you. The game in classic mode is tough but fair. You initially control your single hero or villain and will inevitably gather a group to fight alongside you. Now that being said, there are specific perks to benefit lone wolf style play, so that is also catered for here. Interestingly, most items within the world can be manipulated in some way, allowing for some more unique approaches. Now I won't spoil where exactly, but during one very difficult story fight, I found I could teleport the offending character into the room with me and then blockade the door by lifting barrels and other items in front of it, and I could then wail on him with my 4 party members while the guards lay haplessly outside banging on the door. It was a brilliant sense of freedom and I enjoyed it immensely. Combat opts for a turn-based system that shows the chain of turns at the top of the screen, as we've seen in several other titles, and this works very well. If you're struggling to see what's what, then a tactical camera is easily accessible with the press of a D-pad. Each enemy will have a very specific set of abilities of their own, and my goodness do they know how to use them. Rather than your typical slower-paced turn-based strategy-style game, the classless system means almost all characters will be using ranged gear, magical spells, and even explosive grenades. The battlefield is a deadly place, and foolish placement of your team will mean you die very rapidly.
It's stabbing time!
The surface system means that oil on the ground, water, and poison can be used either offensively or defensively. Fighting a flame enemy, for example, you might want to release a rain spell, dousing the flames around and mitigating some of the devastating possibilities they had. Equally, a pool of water becomes an electricity trap or a hail of ice to freeze and then shatter your foes. Such a small idea that has such a profound effect on the way the combat is approached is a very nice touch. Much of your game time will be spent in dialogue with the other inhabitants of this harsh world.
Ha! Cheeky! What's your name?
with every single NPC impressively voice acted and the narrator doing a fantastic job of filling in the blanks.
She soaks up a steady stream of tears with her shirt sleeve.
There is even a system tied to dialogue whereby sometimes a companion may ask to speak privately to an NPC. You can choose to allow it or not, and let's just say you'll be the one dealing with the consequences. When a game gives you such freedom, it can be difficult to keep any real focus. That's not the case here. They've done an admirable job of grouping quests, both active and inactive, in your journal. Here you'll be given a clear log of events and shown through visual clues on the HUD when developments have been tracked. A far cry from the recent Blasphemous that Glenn reviewed, and toggling those that you're interested in pursuing feels intuitive and, more importantly, sensible. In terms of other controls, everything including leveling your character in several areas, crafting, your journal and inventory can be accessed by bringing up the radial menu. It's an elegant system that just works well. It will never replace a mouse and keyboard, but it feels good enough. I most missed a mouse and keyboard though when it was things like dragging items from your inventory from one side to the other, and here it felt just a touch clunky. It was nice to see a few little options available to mitigate the irritation of looting a larger area, such as allowing you to hold down a button to show every item within range, for you to then choose quickly what you wanted to interact with. Almost everything in the world that isn't bolted down can become yours if, like me, you enjoy being a more light-fingered rogue. Then entering sneak mode and borrowing certain things, it's all possible. Just beware you don't stick around too long because the NPCs are smarter than your average. The world of Divinity Original Sin 2 is a wonderful one, filled with secrets and off-the-beaten-path questing, and in addition to everything I've mentioned so far, the Larian modifications, as they're called, change the core experience to suit you further, but many of these are permanent, so just beware before you choose them. With quick load and save systems and a fast travel system that's impressively robust in terms of the speed with which it loads the new area, add in the easy-to-enable online system that allows for friends or other online players to join, and even the setup of a 4-player local area network. Man, that's awesome. Someone did mention in my last video that they thought there was a split screen multiplayer co-op, but that's not been the case as far as I can see. For me, gameplay scores 19 out of 20. If you're a fan of the genre, I would say this is almost as good as it gets. Controls are solid, but I found the inventory management to be a touch clunky. Controls score 16 out of 20. Now let's get this out of the way quickly. While the performance is decent, with some particularly quick load times when fast traveling, all is not perfect. I haven't had any crashes, but the game looks blurry and handheld. It's not game-breakingly bad, and I've spent several hours playing in this mode. It just isn't the preferred way to play it, and in docked, it's vastly better. Artistically though, the world is still lovely, with bright colours and varied landscapes. It just loses a bit of charm when you're seeing textures loading in as you teleport, or the slightly longer initial load times. I would hope to see a steady stream of patches coming, and the overall performance and frame rate seems to be around 30 frames per second and is decent. Another slightly strange visual anomaly are the portraits of the characters on the left of the screen. They look terrible, like they were a copy-pasted from Google or something. Audio is the polar opposite of the visuals in terms of how it performs on Switch. The musical score is nothing short of sublime, with the orchestrated highs and lows matching the ebb and flow of the narrative and combat perfectly.
Frightfully busy at the moment, love. Haven't got any liquor on hand, have you?
I mentioned earlier, every single character, including animals and some monsters, have voices of some description. The acting is surprisingly good, bar the tongue-in-cheek mockney that I chose for my player character. It's amazing what a difference the painstaking addition of having every voice acted makes to the gameplay.
Every movement, and madness screams from its wide, bloodshot eyes.
Whereas in, say, a Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights title, you might get tired of reading the reams and reams of text on screen. Sitting back here with headphones on and just enjoying the experience was refreshing. Combat sounds were equally good, with a number of explosive and visceral ones accompanying your deeds. Visuals on the Switch score 13 out of 20, while the audio on the Switch scores 20 out of 20. The game costs £44.99, €49.99, or $49.99, and it is a hefty price, particularly for one that's currently only to be had digitally. I mentioned in my earlier coverage that the developers have all but said that a physical copy is coming. Regardless of this, the game you're getting here is more than adequate for the price being asked. While the campaign and arena mode will offer you hundreds of hours of gameplay, throw in the ability to play through with friends or strangers, and you could be looking at that over again. The different difficulty modes change the way it feels. With so many ways of approaching the multitude of quests, you won't feel lost for new and fresh content on your second or third playthrough. Value for me scores 17 out of 20. Had this been available physically at launch, then this would have been higher. And I think if you're not intending on playing in handheld, then other platforms will offer a better experience. As a predominantly mobile gamer though, this is a must-have for me, even with the visual downgrades. So in summary, I'm going to use a comment from the last video, and it says this game is epic. The soundtrack, the gameplay, and the storytelling. Easily one of the best RPGs I've played this generation. Well worth buying. And I think, yeah, that sums it up perfectly. It scores a switch up score of 85%, and that's even with the lower visual score on top. If they patch it up, you're looking in the 90s without problem. A fantastic game. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. If you enjoyed the review, consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, I think we've done about 1,000 subscribers in 4 days, which is incredible. A big thank you to our patrons who support us every single month. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!